This is Louis, and this is going to be a quick advert that I put at the beginning of this video, letting you know to click the link in the description of this video to head on over to PlayAsia or JList and buy yourself something over there. Head on over to JList and buy yourself some candy or some Japanese shit. Head on over to PlayAsia and buy those $1.5 billion indie games that are saving the Western industry that I hear constantly about. And if you don't want to do that, either of those things, head on over to Maker Support or Patreon and support this channel using direct funds. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, hit that fucking like button, more importantly, spend some fucking money, throw me some fucking moolah, and enjoy this 40-minute rant.
So this is Louis. One of the things that I've talked about on my channel quite a bit is the fact that I can't stand the media. I can't stand the press. I specifically called mediaites and journalists journos because I find that, even though it's shorthand in the UK mostly, I consider it to be a derogatory statement or a label to put upon people that are narcissistic upper middle class idiots that operate within an Overton window that's so fucking narrow that you literally have to be part of the media class to even fit within it. They are not representative as a class because of how they act. They act as a class because of the narrowness of their Overton window in terms of what is acceptable politics, what is acceptable behavior. They only represent themselves. They are not representative of anyone other than their own class. And that is one of the primary reasons why I can't stand them. And what is their main concern as a class? What are they consumed by? Are they consumed by some religious sentiment, an ideological sentiment? Is it something that you can define that's worthwhile? You know, is there a bias that is something of some significance of which we have to challenge that's actually intellectual? No, it's bourgeois social norms, which is a term that I believe I have helped popularize. I know that Sargon uses it more and more, and I'm glad for that, because it's very true in terms of concisely putting what is the opinion of these people. What bourgeois social norms means is a very narrow and puritanical, largely, range of acceptable conduct on behalf of everyone. Not just the media, but literally everyone. They hold everyone to this absurd standard of which you can hold no regard for human life in terms of who's sent to war for no fucking reason, that thousands of tens of thousands of Americans could die, and that's fine. No one cares. Salute the flag and put a flag over their fucking coffin as we wheel them into their fucking grave. That's fine. No, who cares? You don't have to ask a single question about that, because that's what's expected of the fucking lower classes, is to die for their country for no clear reason, based on no evidence for why intervention was even necessary to begin with. That's fine. The important part is to not be vulgar about it. If you swear, that is you violating the bourgeois social norms. One of the things that's alarming, and should be alarming to just about everybody, is the acceptability within a certain range of some politicos, some journos, that violence, political violence, is acceptable. This was not that long ago, but it related to Antifa, who was defended by the press largely. It is clearly a terrorist organization that uses violence for political means, and say as much. They say that their use of violence is necessary for their political ends. And the media defended them, or at a minimum, included enough fluff and plausible deniability that it excused that behavior. And that, to me, is completely unacceptable, because we can't live in a liberal society, a pluralistic society, when we have people on the streets using violence for political ends. You can't justify that in our kind of system. You can't. There is no justification for using political violence in our system. It falls outside of the boundaries of our legal system. And yet the journalists defended that, or at least apologized for it. They played the role of apologist for that behavior, even though it's inexcusable for our society. That's acceptable within their Overton window. But it's about conduct. It's about the narrow range of politics that is acceptable. And if you're like me, and once upon a time you used to read the New York Times in terms of hard copy, I used to read the Washington Post. I have a hard copy of the Buffalo News. And one of the things that you'll see in those newspapers is the fact that if you read the editorial section, not the, I am a stenographer for AP articles, or I exist to just talk about the news, not teleprompter kind of journalist, but actual opinion-based journalist. If you ever read the op-ed sections of the New York Times, the Buffalo News, or the Washington Post, the LA Times, one of the things that you'll see is that just about every author, every writer in that op-ed section, the main ones, the ones that actually are main senior contributors to those outlets, they're so similar, regardless of whether they're independent, Democratic, Republican, regardless of what affiliation they claim to have, they're so similar to one another that if you took their names away from their articles, you would be hard-pressed to even distinguish who the author is. And I would love to see that tested. I'd love to see the main contributors to those op-ed sections have articles taken with their names attached, given to people, shown to them, they read them, then you show them articles without that person's name. And then people have to basically try to guess who actually authored the article. I guarantee you people would be, other than some of the more lunatic ones, the fringe ones, the ones that they infrequently offer in terms of the editorial section, but I guarantee you that the main contributors would be so indistinguishable from one another, people would be hard-pressed to even distinguish them from one another. And the problem is that those are the people that are supposed to be the most distinguished of just standard mainstream vanilla journalists that are just stenographers, that are just supposed to be there as objective journalists. These are supposed to be the standout people. And by the way, objectivity is dead. There is no objectivity in the mainstream press. There is none. Now, I know that there's all sorts of people that are on YouTube that they try to be historians, and they go through and they'll tell you that objectivity never existed in news media. And I'm not even going to get into that because it's whatever. The press has always been biased, but I don't think it's ever been as ridiculous and in part revolutionary as it is now. I don't think it's ever been that case as it is now. Because one of the things that came from Donald Trump being elected was the media class finally losing it. Because the role that the media plays in society is that of the gatekeeper. They're not there to inform the public. They're there to gatekeep the public. They're not there to inform the public. They're there to say and decide for themselves what the public is allowed to know. Because editors and those that work at these outlets get to decide what is published and what is not. And they do that based on their own bias. They do that based on their own Overton window, which, as I said, is very narrow. So as it relates to, let's just give an example, the potential war in Syria. The fact that we may be about to go to war with another Middle Eastern strongman that has absolutely nothing to do with the United States. This has absolutely nothing to do with any attacks in the United States, has nothing to do, as far as I can tell, with any even strategic interests in the region. This may have to do with something on a larger, more like four-dimensional, so to say, level of strategy of resources or geopolitics in the region related to other allied nations in the region. But in terms of direct impact on the United States, Syria has absolutely no relationship to us, and we would stand to gain ultimately nothing on a direct level if we invaded Syria. We would stand to lose quite a bit, including many lives that no one has any regard for. But in terms of direct impact, we would stand to gain almost nothing. Our allies in the region, of which one is a fucking fascist shithole called Saudi Arabia, they would stand to gain a lot. But us, nothing that I can see. As far as I can tell, it's something that's only tangentially related to us. It is something just far afield, something far away, something more and more abstract that we would stand to gain from it. It would be us wielding our power and ultimately benefiting ourselves tangentially, but it wouldn't be anything that would be a direct net benefit for the United States. And notice that I'm not even talking about humanitarian or just reasons or however anyone else would spin a justified war. I'm just saying on a purely realpolitik level, on a power politic, international relations, American hegemony kind of understanding, even there, it is abstract. It's something that I can't even just explain to you as why we would be doing it. And as it relates to those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, I've never not said that I am in favor of American hegemony. And I've explained many times why, and I'm not going to bother doing it again. But I am in favor of American dominance in the world. I'm in favor of that. But the problem is that even as someone that is in favor of that, I can't see the direct benefit of our intervention in Syria. There is nothing that I can see, nothing that is actually concrete for why us intervening there would ultimately benefit us in the long run that is not on an abstract level. Because ultimately, it could cost us a lot more, whether we're talking about the short term or long term, it could cost us far more if we intervene there. And that's not even the worst case, of which you have to acknowledge that we could wind up going to war with Russia. That is something that could easily occur based on the fact that we're launching missiles into a country. We are attacking a nation that has Russian troops on the ground. It is very easy for an error to occur and for us to bomb Russian troops, Russian supplies, Russian military equipment, Russians generally, Russian territory, Russian military installations within Syria because they are allied with Syria. We could attack Russia and kick off a war that could end the world. You know why? Because Russia is the only nation on the face of this earth with the capacity to end the world other than us. They have a nuclear arsenal that is equivalent to ours and, if used, would end the world. Going to war with Russia is something that every fucking sane person on the face of this earth should take seriously. But you know who doesn't take that seriously? The press. There have been only a handful of journalists and mediaites that have taken this issue seriously. Very few that see this as something of any concern. Tucker Carlson is one of those very few. He's done multiple segments talking about the dangers of this, the absurdity, the fact that there's been nothing proven that there even was a chemical attack in Syria. There's been nothing shown to prove that it even occurred, let alone who even did it. And yet the press, regardless of who you're talking about, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, the Buffalo News, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Washington Post, doesn't matter who you're talking about, they're all ready for us to go in. They're all ready for a second Iraq war that could end with the end of the world. People can say that's a worst case scenario and that I'm being too pessimistic, but the fact is that it should be taken seriously. During the Cold War, a lot of fucking people at high levels of our government took it very seriously every time we intervened somewhere. Our interventions in Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, and elsewhere were taken very seriously because it could have ended up that we would have gone to war with Russia. Look at the Cuban embargo, for example, which was known as the Cuban Missile Crisis because it almost ended with the end of the world, with nuclear exchange between two nations that, if they were to exchange nuclear weapons, would end the world. We're still in that position. Just because the Cold War is over doesn't mean shit. That could still occur. And yet the press doesn't seem to care. They don't seem to give a shit to even look or even consider the worst case scenario. They don't consider the reason why we're even going in simply because enough fucking cocksucker ex-generals, ex-military, ex-CIA that are now being paid by defense contractors, they just take their word. Oh yeah, we got all this evidence, we should go in, there's all these strategic reasons why. It's like, you are listening to people that have the direct incentive to lie about that. And yet you know that. You know better. You know the reason why they're there is to sell a war. You know that's why they're there. And yet you put them on anyways. And you humor them. You don't ask them any hard questions. You just softball a fucking conversation where they just come on and say, yeah, we need to go in. Because they're gassing fucking civilians. As if there aren't genocides and atrocities happening every single fucking day in Africa and no one cares. There's genocides and atrocities going on in South America. We're not intervening there. It's only in the Middle East. It's only in the Middle East where certain people have direct strategic interest that any of this is being talked about. So there's a reason why I am never going to be on television. There's a reason why I am never going to be interviewed, really, by any kind of mainstream, even though I'm small, but you get what I'm saying. There's a reason why I'm never going to be interviewed, why no one's going to talk to me, why no one's ever going to invite me on anywhere, why no one is going to acknowledge that I, or people like me, ever exist. The reason is that we, or I, in this case, speaking as an individual, see through the press so easily that if you were to invite me on, I wouldn't fucking pull any punches. I would call you for what you are. Nothing more than corporate dick suckers who are so overly concerned about your bourgeois social norms that you overlook the fact that you may be about to send thousands of Americans to die in the Middle East again for no fucking reason. That isn't of any concern to you. It's Trump. It's him being vulgar. It's, oh, he fucked a porn star. It's bourgeois social norms. People are cursing online. People on YouTube hold fringe opinions. There's some white nationalists in America. Ooh, that's what you're concerned about. You're not concerned about anything that's actually real. You're not concerned about debt, people's individual debt, student debt. You're not concerned about the lives of American citizens. You're not concerned about the real economy, the fact that we do have a real issue in the United States right now, and Trump is actually one of the only politicians in my lifetime to even discuss it, let alone do anything related to trade and actual production, not service sector, not service jobs, but producing goods and the impact that that has in terms of geopolitics and international relations. The real politic that relates to that is actually part of a power of a nation, is actual production, not just service sector and importation, but also producing goods and resources. And that's something the United States does, but I think should do more of. You aren't concerned about trade. You aren't concerned about the millions of Americans that have had to learn new trades, move to different sectors and industries, and move on just because they lost their jobs. You aren't concerned about that. You aren't concerned about the hardship families have gone through. You do some fucking fluff piece, but oh, this kid with cancer survived it, or maybe he died. Oh, let's wring the tears out of this one news story and we'll put it on fucking local television. Because that'll get some eyes and it'll get some people fucking hashtagging on Twitter and shit about this local who died because of cancer. I really do get the feeling that people want to say that this is about Israel and whatever. I think that this is just another instance of the United States being the hammer for another nation. We are the tool of another nation. This other nation sees, or these other nations, I should say, that's actually more accurate. These other nations see a nail in the Middle East and they view the United States as the hammer. We're just around to be their fucking tool, their implement, to get what they want done. And we're just going along with it, and so is the press, our press. Why? Because they're internationalists. They don't care about this country. They don't care about the thousands of American troops that are going to fucking die over there. They don't care how many trillions of fucking dollars we shit into the Middle East and accomplish nothing. They don't care. Because they're not patriots. They're not nationalists. They don't consider themselves even citizens of this nation. They're citizens of the world. They're internationalists. They're globalists. They view the world in terms of this overall fucking dynamic. They don't really care what happens to the United States. They don't care how bad things get. They don't really care how corrupt things are. They don't really care. They don't care if the city you live in is a fucking shithole or is under siege by a fucking Muslim mob that has been imported into it. They don't care about any of that because they're not there. They're behind their gated walls in their own communities. They don't give a shit what happens in your backyard. They don't care. They view outsourcing and job loss and just in urban decay and everything that has happened to our nation, cultural dysfunction, they view it all as something abstract and besides the point. It's something that they just dismiss. They don't care. What matters to them is their own interests, their own Overton window. And if you don't fit within that Overton window, if you don't fit within that narrow range of upper middle class fucking concerns of diversity at Fortune 500 companies, if you don't care about that, then they don't care about you. They see you as some fucking backwater cocksucker. They don't care about what you think of this country because they don't consider themselves citizens of the country. They're above that. They're the new aristocracy, and you're all the plebs beneath them. They talk about democracy, but they don't care about that. They don't care about the fact that Donald Trump was elected for a reason. They don't want to look in the mirror. They don't want to look at Hillary Clinton. They don't want to look at the status quo in the United States because they are the status quo. They are the contemporary paradigm of our society. They are our ruling class and our aristocracy, and they have everything to lose if they even look in the mirror to remotely understand what is happening in this country. I can't begin to tell you how little I think of those that are part of the established paradigm, that see our concerns, our real concerns, our direct on-the-ground concerns as frivolous. That it's beneath them. It's something that they don't even have to even consider. It's something that, we understand. It's something that's going on. We get that it's happening, but it's just, we don't care. What we're concerned about is having more Muslims into this country and having more diversity, as I said, in Fortune 500 companies. We need more women in STEM. Frivolous shit that is never going to mean any difference to anybody ever. Diversity quotas in this already fucking Marxist-saturated goddamn society that we live in, where we have Marxist ideologues working at fucking major companies who are out there virtue signaling 24/7 about their own concerns about diversity. When what is diversity? It's just a bigoted program of discrimination against certain people. And guess who it discriminates against? Guess who? Other minorities. That's who these companies are celebrating their discrimination against, is other minorities. Because unfortunately for these fucking retards that are part of the current paradigm, we already have a minority that is overproductive and outperforms other minorities, and it's called Asians. This is something easy to actually demonstrate that is occurring in our society. Asians disproportionately perform better than any other demographic in our society. And in order for you to discriminate and get in people that don't deserve to belong into these corporations because they haven't earned that position, you discriminate against Asians. It's inevitable that that occurs, that you do that. So you are discriminating against one minority to fit in another that is not as good in terms of performance and isn't merit-based in terms of why they're there. And that to you is justice. That to you is fair. That to you is living in a diverse society, even though you are making it less diverse in doing what you're doing. You just like to think that Asians are white, and that makes it okay, or you just deny it altogether, that there's any discrimination even occurring, even though that is what's happening. And that these lawsuits that I've cited keep popping up. These are not the only ones. They keep popping up. But you're not concerned about that. You're not concerned about societal dysfunction. You're not concerned about the fact that overall, the United States does appear to be in some level of decline. Despite advances in technology, we do appear to be in a pretty clear decline. And that to me matters, because not only do I fucking live here, but I care about this country. I want this country to be the hegemon that ideally it could be. I want it to be that. But I don't really think you care about that. I don't really think that any internationalist really cares about the future of the United States. I don't really see it. Because that's what I'm ultimately consumed by in many ways. And yet, these people don't share any of my opinions. They don't share my opinion on immigration and what it should be. Beyond the meme part of it, right? Okay? If you just look at the hard facts of who we're bringing in and who performs and who doesn't, and what would be better for the United States overall, even if you just disregard the population itself, just what would be better to live in a stabilized, decent nation, we wouldn't have the policies that we have currently. You aren't concerned about that. You aren't concerned, really, about our impact in the world and what we're doing and how much credibility we continue to lose every single time we fucking get out there and start swashbuckling to some fucking pissant shithole nation that we're gonna intervene and destroy their fucking nation just like we did in Iraq. We lost so much credibility in the world when we invaded Iraq and destroyed it as a nation. We lost so much credibility when that occurred, and you don't fucking care. You don't give a shit that that occurred. It's not just about intervention. It's about success. We have to succeed in the world in order to retain our hegemony. But you don't care about that. You just want to see more intervention. for reasons that I can't even understand. Like I said, they're abstract. I hope that this wasn't just simply a rant by itself. I hope that people can actually glean something from this, that can take away something from this, because, like, the mediaites get on television and they just pontificate. I don't understand why people hate us. I don't understand why there's all these people, and Trump's always saying that people hate you and you're so disconnected. I don't get it. It's easy. Look in the fucking mirror. Understand who you are. Understand how you act as a class, and the fact that it is that you do that. It's not that people lump you together. It's that you lump yourselves together and you act as a class. And it's for a very narrow range of politics. And for those that fall out of that range of politics, that Overton window, you demonize them. You demonize them. And the ones that you promote, seemingly, are fucking Marxist lunatics. The fact that diversity and all this other shit that's talked about that comes from Marxist academia, the fact that any of that is popularized is just another sign that the media in this country is entirely useless, entirely dysfunctional, and unworthy of the fucking lofty position that they're regarded as. They bring on people like Jordan Peterson and others and are mystified by what they have to say, simply because they don't accept it. And yet the information that's being provided to them, the arguments that are being given to them, are actually showing that they themselves are pushing a form of Marxism that is fundamentally damaging our societies. Not just the United States, but the West in general. Part of the decay of the West is this postmodern Marxist shit. Social constructivism. Go down the line of all the shit we can talk about as it relates to that. Intersectional feminism, social constructivism, postmodernism, all of this insane neo-Marxist, post-Marxist, or just Marxist shit that has come out of academia, it is destroying the Western world. Majid Nawaz, and I'm not going to link it here, tweeted this out earlier where he was getting upset or was talking shit generally about Tommy Robinson being upset about being a nationalist in his own country, watching it fall apart. And I'm sorry, I don't care if you are English or are British listening to this, your fucking country is falling apart. It isn't an international laughingstock. It is an international warning. What happens both when you go whole hog down the line of Marxist academia and insane apologetics, political correctness towards Islam? Your country is not a joke, it is a warning. You don't hear me fucking laughing, and maybe I've been too flippant about the UK. I look at the UK and I recoil in fucking horror at what is happening over there. The fact that you have mass rapes of women and don't care, even underage girls, you don't care. You don't even consider it like a fundamental societal issue of that happening. In the United States, we're obsessed with some Hollywood fucking Jew that groped some girl's ass 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We're obsessed with it. There are a million articles based on it. There's girls by the scores getting raped in the streets by Muslim men that are underage girls. You don't even care. You don't even care. You're more concerned with Tommy Robinson's politically incorrect language than you are your own citizens being raped by gangs of men. And at the same time, you're putting people, comedians, more specifically, in jail for jokes. You're convicting people of jokes. But do we see any kind of collective recoiling from the press, from the media, about what is happening in the Western world? No! Nothing! Trying to have us intervene in the Middle East so we can have more refugees flowing into our fucking society. Oh, isn't that just great? That's just one thing that Europe needs more of, right? More Muslims! More refugees! To destroy their fucking societies. To turn them into illiberal shitholes that persecute their own citizens and place refugees, foreign nationals, above them. Give them a special status in society where they can rape girls and get away with it. And those that talk about it go to fucking jail or even joke about it. Go to jail. One of the reasons why a hardcore nationalist won in Hungary, why nationalists are winning in Italy, why nationalists are winning in America. The reason why nationalists are winning all across the Western world, mediaites, is because of you. You are part and parcel of the current paradigm that is not fulfilling the needs of the citizens. You are not representative of what citizens want. What kind of society they want to live in. They don't want to live in a shit-filled, filthy, otherwise third world nation filled with people that don't speak the native language and act in a way that is antithetical to what is the norm of the citizens living in that society. I don't want child rapists in this nation. I don't want criminals or lunatic Islamist terrorists in this society. I don't want people that are specifically illiberal to such an extent that they wish to revolt and overthrow the liberal democracy in this nation. No one wants that, especially if you live in an already liberal nation. And yet, the media elite don't care about that. They don't care what you or I think. They don't care about the values of living in a liberal democracy and the fact that the reason why they have such a special status in our society is guaranteed in our fucking founding documents and in the values of our nation. They don't care about any of that. They have their aristocratic status and they don't give a shit what got them there and why they're there. And they don't give a shit what role they're supposed to ideally play in our society. They don't care at all. They're just there to represent their narrow fucking utopian politics, push revolutionary Marxist shit, and otherwise just look in the fucking mirror. I hate the Western media. I hate them. And if you're rational, you probably should too. Or at least on some level, loathe them. Disrespect them and not want to have any affiliation with them like I do. I don't want this to just be a video about me hating the media. I want people to understand why so many people hate the media, why so many people look at the media, look at the journalists, and just can't stand them. And it is because like they hold revolutionary politics as more important in society than the actual politics of the society. Like, they don't care about American politics, UK politics, Scottish politics, Canadian politics. They don't care. It's about international politics. It's about global politics. That's the prism of which they view fucking everything. And it's making all of our nations, all of our different separate nations, collectively worse. I don't know if anyone's actually noticed that. Has anyone noticed that things in Greece are pretty shitty, things in Spain are pretty shitty, things in Italy are pretty shitty, things in Germany are pretty shitty, things in Sweden are pretty shitty, things in the UK are pretty shitty, go on and on and on and on. I'm not even talking about America, okay? The West in general is getting worse. Guess what? All of us that are concerned about it are not a part of the current paradigm. We are part of a separate paradigm, one that is very gradually overtaking the current one. And I gotta tell you that it can't come soon enough that we kick these cocksuckers off their pedestal, disempower them, use their tactics against them in such a way that we're not the hypocrites. Because as I said earlier on Twitter, when some fucking Islamist cunt got kicked out of this country, you're the fucking ones that don't care about the First Amendment. You're the ones that don't give a shit about free speech. And yet you're the first ones to bitch when you get deplatformed. You get censored. You get deported. Then you give a shit. Well, guess what? I don't care. I'm glad that those tactics that you endorse are now getting used against you. Because you are unprincipled. You are revolutionaries. You are insurrectionists. You wish to destroy and overthrow our nations. Liberal nations, you wish to overthrow them. You hold no value for the actual liberty that guarantees that we live in functional societies. You don't care about any of it. You know, the First Amendment that you shit on every day of the week, and your calls for hate speech laws and all this shit, policing of language, that's what protects you. That's why you're the press, is because we have the First Amendment that guarantees the freedom of the press. That's why you are the press, is because of that fucking amendment. You don't care. You don't care. You actively call it to be changed. So I gotta tell you, like, I don't care if Trump gets out there and starts saying that he's gonna censor the press. That's what you endorse. You endorse that. You endorse deplatforming That's what's happening to you now, you fucking retards. And do I want to see that happen? Do I want to see Trump do something crazy and authoritarian? No. I don't think he's going to do it either. I think it's just a lot of hot air and playing to the base and all that. And also demonizing the group that he doesn't like generally because they demonize him. But the fact is that anything that happens to you, anything that happens to the fucking cocksuckers that you like, you already endorse. You already endorse the tactics being used against them. You already do. You aren't liberals. You aren't. You do not value liberty. You do not value the Constitution or just generally liberal values in these separate nations. You don't value them remotely. You are illiberal authoritarians, and you endorse, through the Marxists in academia, totalitarian ideology. That is what you endorse. Not I, you. So you're out there calling everyone a fascist and Mussolini light and all this shit. No, you are the ones endorsing and promoting Marxist revolutionaries. Fucking totalitarians. That's who you promote. And Islamists. Totalitarians, that's who you promote. The fact is that eventually you fuckers are going to go too far. And the current paradigm is going to fall. And you better hope that when that occurs, when that inevitably occurs because of what you've done and what is going on still, you better hope that those that take up the new paradigm, of which I hope I'm a part of, are far more merciful to you than you would be to us if we were in that situation. If it was us that was then overthrown because of our misdeeds and all the stupid shit we did, you better hope that we're merciful to you, despite what would have obviously happened to us if we were in that position. You're jailing people for jokes. You better hope that we will be unlike you in terms of our tactics once you go down, because it will happen. It is an inevitability, simply because you people are rotten to the core and you're revolutionaries, and people are gradually tiring of you, and you will eventually go away. The entire media class that exists now are not going to be here in a couple generations, not just in terms of old age and the rest, but the fact that your platforms will eventually go away because everyone is tiring of you. The youth are going online in droves. They're not turning to television. They're not turning to radio. They're not turning to newsprint. They're going away from those outlets. They're going to social media, and they're going around your gatekeeping entirely. Because of that, there have been downsides, to be sure. There's a lot more conspiratorial shit floating around, and that's whatever. I have no control over that. But it's because of you. That's why. One of the reasons why we have conspiratorial retards in all of our societies is because of you, because no one trusts the media. No one trusts you. You all lie constantly. You act as a class to lie in favor of your own political ends. And so people turn to alternative media, and sometimes they're going to get misinformation. They're going to be misled. They're going to be misinformed. And they're not going to know better because anyone that could actually correct them is some fucking mouthpiece for a defense contractor or a pharmaceutical company or some other major conglomerate. But I'm on a whole new tangent. I'll just end it there. Thanks for listening.